Pete, you have a beautiful car.
Thank you, sir.
So the reason why we're doing take two is because we drove around for about an hour and had a grand old conversation and some great drives on some twisty roads. And I didn't have the camera turned on because I'm a dumbass. So we're gonna have to drive again on these great roads. You know, work.
There's worse ways to spend a Tuesday.
So I'm gonna get up.
In November in California with the sun shining down on us.
It is a beautiful, days like this make the cost of living somewhat more palatable.
That's why we pay sunshine tax, right?
Exactly, it's sunshine tax. So while we're driving up there, we had some questions coming in on our Instagram about this car, and I've got a few here. If you don't mind answering a few questions, hit this left. Rip it, dude, rip it.
Got to gear down, remember?
Yeah.
Used to that box
it's a 1.6. When in doubt, gear down. The first question, is the trunk bigger than a soft top NB?
Hard to tell. I haven't measured it. We probably need to circle back and do that. The shape of the trunk line is different to line up with the rear glass.
Like it's taller, isn't it?
It's taller, so it should translate to a little bit more space inside. But again, I don't think anyone was designing this with the notion of it being much more of a roomier car.
Wasn't on the to-do list.
Probably not in the top 10 priorities, but
how much quieter it is than a normal hardtop?
That's the single biggest difference. And I think there's two parts to that answer. One is just the rigidity of the body itself. There's less inherent creaks and sounds that a convertible would make, but then there's also no gaps where air is coming in. I did drove my blue NA up to Canada, the 1,500 miles, and drove this one back. And the difference just in fatigue from it being so much quieter was unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's my favorite thing about this car.
Here's a doozy. What was the process like to register it in Canada?
Surprisingly easy. So when we first bought a house in Canada, that's when I started looking for a coupe, because Canada lets you import cars that are only 15 years old. Mm-hmm. So much more lenient on that front. The process literally was 40 minutes to have daytime running lights turned on, and you don't even need to go to the DMV in Canada. I went to an insurance broker who checked that the numbers matched, and that was it. And I walked out with license plates 30 minutes later.
Sweet. A little bit harder here in the U.S., in California in particular.
Yeah. There's been lots of benefits to anticipating moving back to Canada. No such thing as smog. They're not afraid of ITBs. They don't really care what you do to engines. So,
nobody should be afraid of ITBs. Another question from Instagram: what does the headliner look like?
It's interesting. It's a soft fabric, but the biggest change, and we'll take some pictures of that later, is that it's light. The fabric's light, and so whether you're used to a hard top or a convertible top, the roof's always black. And I think it just creates a sense of more space in here. Again, tough to quantify, or haven't been able to quantify yet.
I tend to agree with you, because it's not a dark color. It's like a light gray.
Yeah.
It makes it feel airier and more spacious. I'm sure that was a conscious decision.
Yeah.
I noticed that there's a slight gap between there and the roof shell. Even so, there's plenty of room. I'm 6'3" now. I'm pretty thin, but these are the stock seat height, and I fit comfortably in here. So the headroom. Somebody else asked about the headroom, and yeah, it's a good headroom. The roof is made out of steel. We put a magnet on it, so confirm that the roof is steel. What's another question? Partial shelf. What does the partial shelf look like?
Partial shelf, I think, looks like it would in an NB with the soft top delete.
Yep. I would agree.
Tom Matano, when he designed the NA, designed the Miata, always sort of envisioned it was going to be a family of cars, and had in his mind a coupe that would be more of a grand touring car. As I recall, he talked about adjusting the firewall behind the seats to make it a little bit more adjustable for that. They didn't do that in this car, so it's not adding any more space. There is a sound bar. One of the few options that the original owner got was the upgraded sound system. There's a sound bar which includes, it's basically like the Bose one without the Bose speakers. It happens to be connected with the wind deflector that you'd see in the convertibles. The wind deflector doesn't serve a whole lot of purpose in a coupe, but it does stop things from sliding off the shelf when you put stuff back there.
Yeah. I noticed it looks like to me like the partial shelf. It doesn't go down quite as far as it does in the soft top. So maybe the structure is a little bit different there. It could just be.
There is a piece at the bottom of the rear window that goes across that is unique to the coupe.
Okay.
When they basically took it off site, they took the NB shell, took it off site to fabricate and attach the roof. There was a couple other versions of the coupe that had bespoke bodywork, you know, kind of a FRP bumper, just like the Mazda Speed ones, etc.
Okay.
They did some of that work off site. But
another question from Instagram. How much does it weigh?
1,040 kilograms. So again, 4 versions of the coupe. 3 had the 1.8. This one has the 1.6. So smaller engine, the lighter engine weighs 1,040 kilograms. The other ones weigh 1,100. Model for model, the weight difference between the coupe and the convertible. The coupe's 10 kilograms heavier, about 22 pounds.
Yeah, and I think my guess is that there was some of the stiffening structure and some of the stuff that this soft top needs to connect to that was left out of this chassis. So they were able to not just take a soft top and then add a hard top to it, but they actually redesigned the tub to some extent. And there's probably some structure that's pulled out and they added, so the net is, that's why it's so, the weight difference is so small. And one of the other questions that we had, how does it drive different? And that's kind of related to the coupe, the driving feel.
Yeah, it's, again, it gets back to that stiffness, but there's, you know, it's so much quieter. That inherently is confidence inspiring, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I've been planning this build for a while, and wheels, suspension, you know, the contact patches, make sure that, you know, those are being adjusted first. It's been fun actually getting to do 1,500 miles in effectively, you know, a low mile bone stock NB, you know. That road trip down was kind of, you know, flashback in time. And then after Sonny helped do the suspension, the Zetas with the, you know, a touring rate, 550, 350 on the springs was just, you know, huge transformation.
So this is Live Oak Canyon in SoCal.
And actually that was part of the fun for me of getting another right-hand drive car, is there's still some nostalgia to going back to shifting gears with the left hand. I will admit that there's still a bit of the muscle memory that you need to adjust vis-a-vis the turn signal and the wipers. Those stocks are inversed.
Yeah, when I was driving it earlier, I got it right about half the time.
Well, and the more focused you are on the corner, the bend, or cars in front of you, the more you go back to your habits of.
Yeah, I ran out of CPU a couple times there.
Yeah.
So I noticed, Pete, this is a 5-speed. Do you know if this is the chassis code on this is NBFL or NB6, right?
NB6FL.
NB6FL.
Yeah. The added code that I've seen, or reference that I've seen in the Japanese literature, is RS. The 1.6 came in 2 levels of tune. This one, which is 125 horsepower, and there's another really anemic spec that I think was 88. Again, this was for tax purposes. One of the things that's been interesting with this car is a lot of Miata enthusiasts didn't realize that in Japan and Europe, Mazda made the 1.6 available throughout the life of the NB. Just like the ND has a 1.5 option in Japan. All the Miatas we've had to date have been 1.6s. I love the engine. I haven't felt, obviously the 1.8 has more power.
But it's not as pleasant a feeling engine. The B6 is inherently better balanced.
I'll take your word for that. I feel biased having 4 of them, saying that it's the best engine for one reason or another.
And it's funny, you feel the difference. They're so much lighter, and because it's a shorter engine, the back of the engine is in the same spot, so there's less front overhang. And it's lighter, so everything else being equal, there's less weight on the nose, and you kind of feel it in this car. This car, the front kind of dances a little bit better, not bouncing around uncontrolled, but it feels like it's a little bit lighter on its feet than a regular NB. a US spec NB is. It's just lovely on this road. This suspension is perfect for this, the way you've got it set up. It's just, doesn't bottom, but it still feels really planted. When it goes over the bumps, it doesn't like float, it just hunkers down really quickly. I really like that.
Yeah, I mean, Sonny did a fantastic job
The setup,
getting me set up, but you know, the 550, 350 spring rate is much more suited to a, you know, a Grand Touring kind of street car. This car again won't see a lot of track time.
You can probably see now why we recommend the stock sway bars.
Yeah.
You know, that little bit of the kind of the allowance for roads like this where it's kind of lumpy and bumpy. Gets that big tire touching your fender liner in front.
Yeah. I mean, right now the wheels I got from a friend of a friend. They were, you know, Murakami did some work with Rays to get a spec that they felt fit the NA, the NB really well. They're 15 by 8 plus 25.
They're beautiful wheels, by the way.
Really,
that bronze T37. I mean, it's such a classic. It's so iconic.
Yeah.
It's fun. I want to take us up on Majeska. So that's a road that we use. It's one of our torture tests for testing suspensions. It's got a lot of lumps where the car will bottom, and positive cambered turns and off cambered turns, and it's got yumps where you kind of come over and the car gets light. So it's a real test of the suspensions. What I found interesting is that I learned that I hope Dave doesn't bust me for this, but Dave Coleman, he's the main R&D guy for suspensions at Mazda USA. That's his test drive too, because there aren't that many roads around here. He comes all the way up from Irvine and he tests on that road, just like he basically found it. And so when you're driving, you know, an ND2 or something like that, and you're thinking this thing works really well on rough roads. Well,
on this road particularly.
On this particular road, the same one we used to develop the Zetas and the Technos and everything.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of funny.
All the right undulations and load up
or all the wrong undulations.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Because finding roads that are right, it's easy. It's like
you're right.
You can get a bad suspension to work on that, but if you get a road that's awkward, that it upsets the car, that's a better test.
Yeah.
And it's really the uphill, right at the top. It's a little short, little toge run, but you'll see when we get up there, it's lumpy and bumpy.
And things that'll probably make me even appreciate more the stock sway bars.
Yeah, it's definitely a stock sway bar. I've made the mistake of taking race cars on this road a couple times, and they don't like this road. It's too bumpy. A little bit of dirt there, kick the tail out. So this is an off camber up here, and then there's a really steep part right here, positive camber, big lumps in the middle of the turn, and then there's a big dip here right as you turn. So right as you're turning in, the car unweights, so there's no weight on the front wheel. There's a compression right in the middle of this one, and then a second compression as you exit it. Big dip there, off camber, compression. It's just this roller coaster. And sometimes you can get the car where it works really well, except for one bump, one little particular spot. It doesn't work, and you go, okay, well, why didn't it work there? It's like, oh, you know what? The front bump stops are too tall. We need to trim them down. So you can go back, trim the bump stops, come back and try it again, and just try it again, and try it again, and try it again. I've driven this road, I don't know how many, hundreds and hundreds of times.
We were fortunate enough. I lived in the South Bay I guess we lived there for 11 years, and Palos Verdes Drive East was my local, evening shakedown.
I remember, because there was a couple of cool, really lumpy, particularly lumpy roads. I remember, because I know the land was shifting a lot there.
Yeah.
And you'd get these places where the road was just like would drop out.
Yeah,
And it was really good for testing.
There's one spot in particular where the road line just vanishes away, and it's
Yeah.
kind of like when you're coming up to the hairpin at Laguna, and you have to have conviction that the road's on the other side. You might not be able to see it, but you actually know it's there.
They have a couple of roads that are like infinity pools.
Yeah.
And these are all low-speed bumps, but they really get the suspension to bottom and lift and
Now, everything you said about Dave and this road absolutely resonates. But I could see for someone that's testing suspension on production cars that this is a perfect road to figure out what it needs to do for the everyday driver and people that push it a little bit more.
yeah. And you feel how the car is constantly going through the travel, bottoming, topping. It's like it's a real test. And to do this with grippy tires and drive it with a little bit of pace, it quickly uncovers. We can have something that feels good by the shop, and then we'll bring it up here and do this, and like, oh, okay, no, that's not right. It's topping out right there. There's a little bit of that rally car thing I want a Miata to have. I want to have that where you can drive over a lumpy road at speed and have it just be composed the whole time. It's moving around, but you don't feel like the car's getting away from you. But that's Majeska.
It's what's been great about today, besides who gets to spend a Tuesday out on roads having a nice time. Now, I'm pretty confident after today that this is how I want it set up.
I like it.
No more tweaks needed. So it's been it's fun spending some time in it with you today.
It's a lovely car to drive. So these are, tell me again about these wheels.
15 by 8 plus 25. Company in Japan, Murakami, worked with Rays to get what they felt was the ideal NA/NB fitment.
It's gorgeous. Speaking of curves, that trunk, it's higher than the regular MB trunk.
Yeah, it does come up, and it raises in the middle.
And it's higher here too.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And actually, we wanted to see.
Oh yeah, the trunk.
This
I'm
is
saying that's about the same space as the soft top. It's just a little taller. It's higher this way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The original owner got Nakame, an older gentleman in Japan who makes some lovely interior goods, to make those seat covers and the handbrake cover and the shift boot cover. Mm-hmm. So the stock interior is black. I'm sure there's even less miles on those seats, because as I understood it, he got the covers put on very early on, but that was his aftermarket hurrah. Mm-hmm. I've already been messing with it a little bit, but.
So is this shifter surround part of the alloy package?
Yes.
So that's the only part that you have, though, right? Or is it the pedals too?
No, the pedals, the handbrake handle.
Oh, right.
There's a shift knob that I've got that matches that handbrake handle. I've got a leather Joyfast on there right now that I just kind of prefer the feel of. It adds the mini disc player and adds a sound bar behind the seats, which, adds a speaker just over the driver's right shoulder, the passenger's left shoulder, and a wind blocker. Liners, neat. It's almost like a felt material. Yeah. Yeah, as we were saying, you get a different sense when you're actually driving in it, but the lighter color does make it feel roomier in there somehow.
It's open the hood. And most people don't know that this is a 1.6. Oh, wait, I gotta get these decals. I love the side marker light. It's just so cool.
Side markers is a factory requirement, and then, I know a lot of people aren't keen on.
All right, I gotta show get a keen on props.
Oh. A Kina Speedstar. So the guys at Keenod educated an old guy like me about Initial D. I never grew up with that or anime, and so saw the series, and I always appreciate a little bit of parody. That's aftermarket.
Oh, I was gonna say.
Yeah. A friend had those made up for his, but didn't need them. But yeah, the Akina Speed Stars is the local team, not the best team in Initial D, but I think they had the most fun. It's kind of how I think about Keenod. Keenod's not the fastest guys on track, most of them anyway. I mean, I guess you and Sonny are Keenod alum for sure, but for most of us, we go out on track and have fun, but we're not, not quite that level of competitiveness.
Interesting here, the AC stuff coming through where the brake would be on the US car.
Yeah, the interesting thing was when we were putting in the those aluminum blocks, the SuperMiata aluminum blocks.
Yep.
Didn't need to use the one with the cutout, not because there isn't power steering, but because of where it's wired through, where it's hardwired through. It actually doesn't go through that point.
Oh yeah, he told me that. He
two
used
solid blocks.
Yeah, so it's the power steering. There's a little different. Oh, yeah. These are the MSM lights, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
You didn't have these before.
No.
I remember I was giving you grief about your faded lights.
They were a bit yellowed.
They were a bit yellowed, yeah. Oh, that looks hot.
Yeah, Bill Wilner he managed to track down a set of brand new OEM from Mazda MSM headlights. So I thought if I could do the slightly darker tinted gray, it's still in keeping with OEM.
That's such a nice touch, the way you get those lined up and everything. It's a little OCD, but it's perfect.
Like so many of us, I grew up being fascinated by cars that people were taking to track and the fun they were having with them, and
Yeah, there's a certain amount of. I appreciate the track style. It's like, okay, maybe I only go to the track once a year, but damn it, I'm going to run a tow hook.
Well, yeah,
because it looks hot.
There's that, and
it looks hot. I mean, there's no way around it. I see a car. I see a car with the tow hook, and like I'm interested. Okay, you got my interest.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to need to get pulled out of the gravel, but in case I need to, it's there.
Isn't it a little bit like an umbrella? If you don't take the umbrella, it's going to rain. You put the tow hook in the car, you never park it in the sand.
Yeah. Oh, that maybe it's my good luck charm.
These lights, I notice. I forget what the term in the U.S. here when we buff out all the DOT stamps, but it's like polished lights or whatever. But these are
inherently smooth. I know we were looking at that the other day.
They have DOT stamps inside, but they're smooth outside, and that's how they left the factory. Did you know that the NB rear tail lights, they have a set on display at the Museum of Modern Art in New York?
Yeah.
This beautiful round tail, and this is such an iconic, beautiful shape. Beautiful stuff.
Yeah. And the way the light catches it, we were talking about it before, but this transition from the C-pillar down to the...
Yeah, it's one of those things that you just keep looking at it, and you just keep looking at it, then you walk away, and you turn around and come back, and you look at it some more. It's just so...
People often say if you park your car and you don't turn around to look at it as you're walking away, you've got the wrong car.
I agree entirely. I still do that. I mean, there's certain angles the ND is okay, and other angles it's just stunning to me.
Yeah.
And every generation of car has its angle.
Yeah.
Like from a certain angle, it's just, oh man, that's just sweet. Especially get just the right tire and wheel package on it, and God, that's pretty. Yeah, this is definitely eye candy all day long.
Feel very lucky to have found it.
Yeah. So you didn't talk much, but we talked a little bit about the story of you acquiring this car.
We bought a house in Canada 2 years ago. And I knew that the biggest thing that was going to do was open up the possibility of importing a car. 15 years is the limit in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
I think we talked about it before, but other than getting daytime running lights turned on, that was the only modification that needed to be done. The cluster's already in kilometers per hour. Took me 30 minutes at an insurance shop. I didn't even have to go wait in line at a DMV, and I came out with plates and off I went. But I'd started looking for a project car. I knew I wanted something from Japan. I wanted right-hand drive because I'd lived in England for so many years, and that's kind of a bit fun, a bit nostalgic. And a lot of the neat Miatas in Japan that were right-hand drive were things that I think I would have only ever felt comfortable being a custodian of. I love the M2 cars.
Yeah.
1001, the 1002, the 1028, but I knew I'd never do anything other than keep them pristine. And I figured with the Coupe, as long as I didn't do anything irreversible, I could have some fun with this one. And so far, we're on that track, I think.
It's beautiful. Well, congratulations on the find, and thank you for letting me spend a few precious hours with it. It's been a delight, and it's always a pleasure having you here at the shop. Wish you
Pleasure's
well,
mine.
and at some point we're going to have to come up and visit you up north, and we'll do some more driving.
You got it. You got some good roads to show you around there too.
Outstanding. Take care, brother.
Yeah, thank you.